everything Huggies does is in service to the baby.
Our brief with Huggies, it started with this project brief, and it was about this innovation that they had had for like 20 years. And when they showed it to us, it was like, oh my God, like, how do people not know this? How have you not been shouting it from the rooftops for decades?
Welcome to Any Insights Yet? The podcast that explores the intersection of strategy, inspiration, and branding. I'm Chris Kotex. To set the tone for Season 2, I wanted to talk about taking risks and breaking rules with Gordy and Brian Siedband at Quality Meets Creative. In 2024, Quality Meets was named Adweek's Small Agency of the Year, in part because of their unabashedly bold work around period sex, their passion for sandwiches, and men's underwear. Here's what I realized while talking to Gordy and Brian. They're not just a couple of chief creative officers. They're fast-acting, freewheeling, fly-by-the-seat-of-their-pants creative disruptors who believe in trusting their instincts and delivering work that's both unexpected and unforgettable. Their guiding philosophy? If it's not breaking at least one rule, is it even worth making? Whether it's giving a fast food brand a whole new attitude or rethinking the way brands connect with their customers, Gordy and Brian push boundaries in provocative ways that are simultaneously rebellious and refreshingly honest. In this episode, we dive into their work with German Doner Kebab, Huggies, and You by Kotex, just to name a few very different brands, all with the same core challenge, standing out in crowded categories. We also talk about the fine line between irreverence and insight, and why the best creative work often comes from trusting your gut over playing it safe. Before we get into all that, though, let's start with a question about breaking rules. What are some classic advertising rules that you guys are like, yeah, we're breaking those rules intentionally? Brian, you want to go first?
I think everything we do, in a way, like we try to break some rule. I think the best work, we look for ways to kind of go against the category. I think you have to do that in order to stand out. Thinking of examples, I go to like when we worked on Taco Bell in our previous life, and they had kind of the Live Más campaign. And for years and years, it was like millennials showing millennials their lifestyle, out late, going to see bands, looking cool, that sort of thing. And we're like, yeah, I don't know if that resonates because that just kind of blends into the world of cool looking millennial stuff. And so for our Super Bowl commercial, like we represented that lifestyle, but instead of showing millennials, we showed geriatric people doing those things. And just kind of that one twist or that one change was all it needed to kind of break through and be a different kind of story. So in general, I think part of the rule is break the rule in some way. And if we're not doing that, then it's like, I would question it.
Yeah, well, then it's not going to be different. It's not going to stand out. Gordy, how about you? Are there any rules or classic guides of advertising that you feel like you want to target?
Yeah, I mean, to what Brian said is like, we probably break a lot of rules. And that's how we've always kind of worked, even in the bigger agencies, and a meeting with a client who had, like an AOR or something, and we would speak our mind or something like that. And they'd be like, no, don't say that. And it's like, well, that's what we're getting paid for. Like, we can't help ourselves to say what we need to say, or before even selling it to a client, try to figure out like the production logistics of like getting a partner and having it almost be turnkey, and not only just running with the production logistics, but like it's me as a creative or one of our creatives producing or reaching out to somebody who probably would be like, guys, stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Like, let the producer do that. Or, like I'm texting a client, like that should be an account management thing, not you reaching out. Like those lines blur on the daily, where I think in the traditional world, we might get a little bit of a hand slap, where we kind of promote people to get a little bit cowboy. We want everybody to kind of like have that entrepreneurial spirit and kind of like do your own thing. I'd rather ask for forgiveness with certain things than ask for permission.
At Quality Meets, do you guys have in your core values, go rogue or go a little cowboy?
One of the core values is breaking rules that we think are meant to be broken. So anything that kind of gets in the way of efficiently getting to the best work and getting it out there in the right way.
Yeah. What's an example on a recent project that you guys can think of where somebody went rogue a little bit on a research project or learning things about the customers or something to do with the storytelling?
I mean, like the work that we just launched for German doner kebab. Sometimes when things are creatively appetizing to us, we can't help ourselves but to go make the thing. As long as there's budget to go make something and it's good and it's going to work and it gets us excited, we can get behind it.
But even when there's not budget, we'll do it. I mean, that's kind of the thing. And we won't do it for clients. We'll do it for ourselves. Maybe that's bad business and that we don't make money off of these things. But I think it's a core part of our operation and who we are in terms of we're just going to keep doing these things. And as we've grown, this stuff has been a part of it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe it's good business. Again, we're idiots with business, but we just do what we think is right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an if you build it, they will come mentality to it. You know what I mean? Yes, we have lots of paying clients and we're going to do work that moves the needle. But when we see an opportunity to make something that's good and that we get excited about, we kind of try to remove any barrier to do it because it just energizes us and it's fun to do. And that's the fun part of what we're doing. People like it. It's fun to put out to the world, and it ultimately helps us.
So fewer filters and letting your passion drive you to scratch that creative itch or that idea that's coming.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier, so let's talk about a German doner kebab for a little bit, okay?
It's a nice German accent.
Thank you very much. We'll just do it like this for the rest of the interview, okay?
Yes, this is great. I love this.
So how did it come about? Don't be silly, Billy. Where did this idea come from?
It was a pitch for German doner kebab. They were coming to the US. It's kind of like this late night drunk food in Europe and UK. And it's kind of like how the burrito is in the US, like college and, whenever go late night and you get a burrito kind of thing. And then their German doner kebab brand is a chain, cleaner ingredients, nicer restaurants, all that for that product. I parallel to what Chipotle did to the burrito in the US, but they did that overseas. Mm-hmm. And it's highly successful. They've grown tremendously in the UK and in Europe. And now they had just been coming over to the US. And I think this is comes to a brutally honest thing was in the UK and I guess it's Dubai, their visuals are very cool and it's hip hop and Lamborghinis and kind of flashy. And it's just eat German doner kebab. And people are yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, German doner kebab. Where if you came to the US and came out with hip hop and Lamborghinis and were German doner kebab, people were what are you talking? What the fuck are you talking about? That's insane. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. None of those words even make sense to me, let alone the way in which you're presenting it to me. It's Ali G-ish. So that was kind of us saying listen, you have to have a different voice and approach here in the US because people don't know what it is. And we have to kind of simplify it. If you're trying to talk to a younger generation, talk to them in their language but be self-aware. It's weird. It ended up being pandering to Gen Zs, but self-aware that we're pandering to them, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. This idea that we know that the joke that we're telling, that you're in on the joke of the pandering.
Yes.
And there's even a bit of we know that you want to be open-minded or be seen as open-minded about, the food you eat and open to different cultures and ways of life. We know that you want that and want to be seen that way. We're going to tell you to do that in a very self-aware way. Mm-hmm. And that's where open your mouth mind kind of comes from as kind of a demand for you to be open-minded. And then coming from the mouth of this, character who's slightly offended that you would question it, mm-hmm. or that you would think, that you would think about it in that way, who's just trying to educate you and slightly insult you in the same way.
It's hard to be earnest in today's landscape, right? You could go in and be we're going to explain what German doner kebab is. It's this and this and this. But I can't think of the last earnest ad that I saw that was genuinely earnest.
The reason you can't is because it's wallpaper, because they exist. The earnest ones and this and this and this. I see them daily. I just fast forward them or block them out of my brain.
So, Gordy, you said in an interview recently that cutting the traditional agency fat and being bluntly honest with clients and consumers is what keeps us growing. What's a good example of a time when you were bluntly honest with a client? Was it with Doner Kebab? Was it with another client that you've worked with recently where you just had to say, look, I'm going to be honest with you?
I mean, yes, the Doner Kebab was 100% and a strong example of that.
Where you said you can't do what you're doing in the UK. You can't show up in Lamborghinis.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. You guys, you'll be laughed at in the wrong way. I'm trying to think what else. There's been numerous times where we kind of fall on swords and are honest about things. Again, this is another daily thing that we probably do and probably do too much where they're like, we get it. But Huggies, when we did Baby Butt Song, they wanted to lean to like a poppy, fun, cool song. And like, I think there was a line there. If you did that, it becomes slightly schlocky and slightly cheesy, where that like weird edge, interesting voice kind of pushed it the other way where it was interesting and fun and earwormy, where the other, if we stepped over that line, it would have become like kind of cheesy and corny.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with Dan Cohen at Saatchi, New York, about Charmin and Toilet Tunes, this whole set of songs that they made. And he was saying that the most important thing is, don't take yourself too seriously. Like as soon as you start making a Toilet Tune song too seriously, it's going to tip over into what you just said, schlocky.
I mean, that's self-awareness. And I think like it all comes from that. And I think we have these conversations, these blunt conversations with every client at some point, usually early on, like at the beginning. I think back to like one of our first bigger clients, Marquee Sports Network, where it was like part of being a Cub fan is the misery and the pain. And like every regional sports network, like they're rooting for the team and it's the rah-rah type of work. But like that just doesn't feel honest to the Cubs experience. It's a roller coaster and there's ups, and those ups wouldn't be as high were it not for all the long 100 years of down. So it's like, you have to acknowledge that. That has to be part of the journey. And so selling them a platform that shows like, we understand that. And it was like, you got to show that. And part of that is acknowledging the pain. So there's that sort of like strategic level honesty. And then there's the day-to-day honesty where it's like, we want to talk colloquially in this commercial. So we're going to say, but, and that's the way that people talk.
Since we're talking about Huggies, when you first started talking with Huggies, what did they say their biggest challenge was?
Our brief with Huggies, it started with this project brief, and it was about this innovation that they had had for like 20 years. And when they showed it to us, it was like, oh my God, like, how do people not know this? How have you not been shouting it from the rooftops for decades? And like they had whole campaigns around it. But what it came down to was you take a Huggies diaper, you open it up and you take a whatever competitor diaper and the shape is different. Basically, every other diaper is a rectangular shape. Huggies diaper has an hourglass curved shape, which is totally intuitive. It's like underwear, and the human body is curved and it's not rectangle. And that's exactly how you would think a diaper should be. And they had campaigns around that, commercials, long running stuff. And as parents ourselves, this never occurred to me. And so it was like, we think there's something special about this, highlighting this product difference. And we're like, yes, like that's all you need. It's right there. We don't need to go and bake strategy around that for months and come back with a new platform that maybe dances around that or tiptoes around that. That's what their previous agencies had done. And I think they were a little frustrated with that. So we just kind of grabbed that and embraced it and kind of put it front and center and developed the whole campaign like right around that product difference.
Was there something that you had to ask them or say to them to get them to look at things differently? Or did you just come to them and say, guys, we're going to use the word but, and there's no two buts about it?
Yeah, I mean, with that idea, it was kind of like, look, we're going to make a song about baby butts, and it's going to celebrate all the different shapes and sizes. that can move around freely and comfortably because of this curved diaper shape that is unique to you guys. And it's going to be a fun, really dumb song. And it's going to say butt over and over and over again. And they liked it a lot. They sparked to it and they're like, yeah, I totally get how that could be really catchy and, brings to life this whole thing and really sticky.
Right.
Then it became about, okay, we got to make this song very distinct.
And then from there, it grew into the Alphabet book, right? How did the Alphabet book come to life?
So they were looking just for different extensions and ways to bring it to life. And that was one of the numerous activations that we brought to the table. And that just felt so universal. And it was like such a nice physical explanation of the song, like to show the diversity of little kids' butts and shapes and sizes of butts, but doing it in a manner that creates a thing that's real. Their tagline being, "We got you, baby," should first and foremost look out for the baby. That's the goal. It's like everything Huggies does is in service to the baby. So like a children's book about butts, kids love hearing and giggling about butts. Making a children's book that's about butts, but also beneficial to the parent too, because, a lot of kids' books are repetitive and whatnot. So creating something that's a little bit fun for mom and baby, but also secretly very hardworking for the product. It's like basically a brand book that's talking about how their diaper can fit all these different fun, silly shapes of babies' butts, but that doesn't have to seem like an ad.
Did you guys go through a publisher or did you just do it all yourselves?
Yeah, so like originally the goal was like, okay, let's do this stunt activation type thing. Let's make a batch of these books, sell them, get the headlines. It's a fun thing to do. All the profits went to their National Diaper Bank charity. And that was great, but we are annoying and we're squeaky wheels and keep going. Especially my kids were in diapers at the time. I'm like, this is a book that I would want to have. Like, why wouldn't other people want to have this? So we then contacted a literary agent as well as a publisher, someone who helped negotiate with publishers. And we found through the literary agent, found the various different illustrators and authors to help us because we used 26 different illustrators. It was a combination between children's book illustrators as well as like street artists and cool designers and stuff like that to create individual A through Z of butts, individual ones instead of having one illustrator per. Again, diversity of butts as well as diversity of style and people to create. So we found a literary agent to help us recruit that, where again, traditional agency, maybe we stay within our walls, use a producer, go through formalities. It becomes harder and all of a sudden like to the point where maybe we throw up our hands and we're like, guys, this isn't achievable, especially in the time span in which we did it, which was what, 8
weeks or something. Yeah.
8 weeks, something like that.
I was going to say the traditional route, you'd probably be 2 years later.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
So we hit the ground running, got that going, recruited different illustrators, negotiated the prices, all that stuff, got the book created, but then took it a step further and started talking to these literary agents / publisher people and had them shop it around to different children's book publishers to see if they'd be interested. It felt like a good partnership. And now it's a book that lives on forever. So it's not something that just was a one and done stunt, but something that can kind of remain on shelves and bookstores or online and stuff like that, and still kind of having the Huggies brand attached to it.
Do you guys know Brian Cook by any chance? He's created quite a little empire around drawing butts on things.
No, but now I'm intrigued.
I want to know him.
You guys should keep track of Brian Cook. He has a calendar and some other stuff that's called Drawing Butts on Things.
Aptly titled.
He'll take any object and draw a butt onto it in an interesting way. So maybe for a future project. When we were talking a couple of weeks ago, you said that you love the Alphabet book because it's nice to create something that wasn't just a piece of advertising, but a product that people actually wanted that lives beyond the media buy, which is what you were just saying now, Gordy. Is there another example where you created a piece of content that had intrinsic value for the person consuming it and wasn't just an ad?
I mean, we try to do that as much as possible in general, because like you could tell people and just talk about what your purpose or your North Star or your point of view is, or you could do tangible things to bring it to life in different ways. In this case, it was a book. In other cases, it's been a product. We work with Kotex to develop period sex chocolates. They partnered with a small female-owned chocolate company called Phasey around Valentine's Day, create these period sex chocolates, which was basically a Valentine's Day gift with a pack of, Kotex tampons, as well as the aphrodisiac chocolates, bringing to life their kind of point of view of normalizing periods. So a breakthrough, edgier way to do that, but bringing to life that brand purpose. Chicago is a initiative that we had done where the idea was to kind of get people talking and thinking about the quality of water in Chicago, because it is like a boon to the city. There's a lot of negativity and negative stories around Chicago and not much positive. And one kind of positive thing about it is the fact that Lake Michigan is this drinking source, this great water source that's going to be around for a long, long time, where other cities are struggling to find that. And we have that right here. So shining a light on that could have just been a billboard campaign or videos and stuff, but we wanted to create, again, something that tangible to kind of shine a light on that, and something that people could engage with in a different way than an ad. So we canned Chicago tap water, creating a brand around it called Chicago. And people in the city wanted that. They wanted those cans, again, work with Chicago street artists to design them and make them kind of like something that would be like a collectible thing. When in reality, this is the same water that's in your sink. There's no reason to want this. But a little bit of the liquid death math of trying to skin that in an interesting way. People wanted that. And it was just a more interesting way of addressing the problem and educating people.
I still get contact because I'm on the contact on Chicago website of people being like, oh, we have this event in Chicago. Can we do it? And the goal was to kind of like coin all Chicago tap water be Chicago. This was kind of the road flare to do that. Like all of a sudden we had signs on restaurants that said proudly serving Chicago, or like at the marathon, the little cups would say Chicago, when in reality it's just tap water. Like I'm still getting hit up from different fests or 5Ks, people looking to get the Chicago cans. And I think there actually is validity behind the product if anyone's out there that wants to invest in something like that. And then just to rewind to the Kotex situation. So again, like that was Valentine's Day. Their point of view is to normalize periods, but also statistically, and this is weird talking about as a man.
3 men talking about periods.
Yeah, I was hesitant to go too deep on this one because of that.
Statistically, women apparently have a craving to have sex during the periods, and honestly, it technically alleviates some of these symptoms that coincide with periods, as does chocolate. They have a desire to eat chocolate, and chocolate actually has things that alleviate the symptoms. So it was the sex, the chocolate, all combined into one to help create a conversation about normalizing periods, as well as being beneficial to alleviate and empower women.
Well, what this is making me think of, all of this conversation, whether it's about Chicago or it's about period sex and Kotex, is this idea that like ads are this thing that's like out there, right? You see it on a billboard or you see it on television. It's always like at arm's length. But what you guys are doing is creating content that is more personal, feels more intimate, and is something that in the case of Chicago, you can actually hold in your hand. It doesn't feel like an ad. Does that make sense?
I think that's the idea, because ads are ads. And there's a certain kind of skepticism around that you feel like you're being sold something, and a desire to avoid that even. But when you could take that further and actually kind of put your money where your mouth is and prove that, it's all about kind of proving what you want to say about your company or your platform or your point of view. Find ways to prove that in a way that actually is useful and helpful to people. I think the period sex chocolates and the alphabet book, those are all examples of things that are meant to kind of be like for people to enjoy and to also be useful in some way, not just the total novelty. not opposed to novelties sometimes. Sometimes there's a desire for that. But also, like, again, it's about proving the purpose or proving the brand's kind of point of view or the platform that we've kind of honed with them that is distinct as possible, and proving that to them in an interesting and surprising way. And that could be a product. It could be a partnership with another brand. It could be an event. It could be music. It could be anything.
It's not just a tagline for an ad campaign. It's something that you should live up to, right? It should be your North Star, both internally as a company, like everything you do as a company, whether that's internal or consumer facing, should try to ladder back up to whatever that quote unquote tagline or platform is.
So we've been talking about all kinds of ideas, all kinds of media channels. There's a lot of media fragmentation out there, obviously. There's shorter and shorter attention spans. When you think of advertising and these various factors at play, do you feel like the big idea is dead? Or where do you think the big idea is heading, in your opinion? Is it just going to be a bunch of random, loosely connected, smaller ideas from now on? Or is there still room for the big idea in today's branding landscape?
I guess it depends on what you define as big idea. I guess it goes back to, like, if we say, oh, we got you, baby, is the big idea or platform. I don't think that's dead by any means. That's creating a purpose, and everything can ladder back up to that, whether it's a small, scrappy piece of content or a big anthemic thing or an act. So in that sense, no, I think it's more vital than anything. So there's a connective tissue between all of the fragmented ways people consume media.
No, the big idea is not dead.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
No, because I stand by the fact that smaller, disparate ideas, if they don't add up to anything, then you're throwing money into the wind. You're not building anything. I think no matter how small, it should still be reinforcing kind of a bigger thought in some way. Now, you might have the big brand North Star or the big brand point of view, and there may be separate creative ways to articulate that and separate medium ideas under the big idea, but they share the same DNA, and they're kind of reinforcing that, or they're putting a distinct lens on that, or they're evolving that. But it all needs to be cohesive, and it needs to add up to something. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Now, a big part of the business that we're in is how you manage to sell an idea, which means a big part of that is getting clients comfortable with being uncomfortable. Can you think of an example where you were able to get a client so far out of their comfort zone, but successfully sell them the idea?
We tell them up front in the very first meeting, always, that, like, we're probably going to bring work to the table. Not probably, we are, that will make you uncomfortable, that will push you in some way. And we're telling you that now, so that when we do that, you will be like, oh, they told me they'd do that. And they're ready for it when we bring it. And if we don't bring it, then they would be like, where is that? Because you said you would do that. And that's why I want to work with you. And it's important to us to be sought out for that reason. Not that it needs to be provocative again, just that it needs to push boundaries in some way.
Right.
Without tension, I guess nobody's really going to pay attention, is a thing that one of our old creatives had mentioned, and we've kind of latched onto over time.
It's a great expression. Speaking of expressions, we're going to go into the speed round now. You guys ready?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's do it.
What's your favorite word in English or any other language?
Predicament.
Why that word?
I have no idea. I was at a malleable age when I saw the movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. And he said, ooh, what a predicament, in a very dramatic way. And I was like, that's a fun word. What does that mean? And then I look and I'm like, that's a great word. And now I use it, I think, often.
We're going deep into your subconscious.
Yeah, it has a lot of syllables, consonants. Yeah, that's my word.
Brian, how about you? Did you know this about Gordy? Did you know that was his favorite word?
I didn't. And coming up with one word feels like a bit of a predicament. I like a lot of dumb sounding words. I'm in like the gobbledygook world of those type of words, but I guess I would hone in on malarkey because it's a fun old timey way of saying bullshit. And we talk a lot about the bullshit and eliminating the bullshit and trying to sift through the bullshit.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's the most recent great movie you've seen or TV show or short video that made you stop and go, wow?
Wow. Wow is a lot. I guess Severance, that show makes me go, wow, for sure.
This is old, so I guess this isn't a new thing, but I was watching movies, whatever, with my wife over the break, and we stumbled on Swiss Army Man that was made by the Daniels, the directing duo who made Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it totally blew my mind. It's about a guy on an island who finds a dead body, and then kind of that dead body kind of gradually comes to life, sort of, as and kind of gives him hope to stay alive. And it's a wild, like, twist and turns journey kind of thing, which I wasn't prepared for at all. Didn't know anything about it, but was kind of blown away.
What's one of the most interesting jobs you had before you got into the work you do now that you think has helped you do your job better?
I did an internship. It was like a program in high school, actually, my senior year. I think it was called the Senior Project. It was an American Needle hat company. And it was like a 4-week program where they were like, you just design hats. And they just gave me kind of free reign, and they actually like produced some of the hats and whatever. And I'm like, how old are we as a senior? I forget, like
17, 18. These are baseball caps?
Baseball caps, yeah. They make a lot of, you would know them. It's like New Era American Needle. And that was just like a fun, just kind of like, oh, this is an interesting world to dive into, and the open creativity and the design and stuff like that. And so that was one of my first things that kind of like opened my eyeballs. It may have even like then set the trajectory I went on through college out of sheer kind of like luck in a way, you know what I mean? Because like you just pick a path because you don't know what you're doing. You're a young person. And so I did that, and I walked down that path of like, oh, design and fun, creative world, and ultimately led to where I am-ish.
Mm-hmm. I see the red thread in all of that because you got to create something physical.
Yeah.
Right? A baseball cap where you merged creativity with a tangible thing.
Yeah.
Brian, how about you? Most interesting job that helped you do what you do better?
I was a singing waiter, which there's no literal connection here. Just more of a metaphoric thing, I guess. First off, juggling different orders, trying not to look like an idiot, managing the kitchen. Every now and then had to get up and dance like a monkey on a stage and entertain.
It's kind of like running a business.
Yeah.
It's all the same things. Last question. What's a piece of advice that you got early on in your life or in your career that you still remember to this day or that you think of often?
The one that we live by, I think, is trust your instinct. Whether it's a big scale kind of business decision or even a small scale thing where it's like, I don't like the sound design thing in this spot's like kind of bothering me. It's like, well, we got to fix that because like we live and die by kind of what that instinct is. Always basically listen to it and trust with that. And every decision we make, we are aware of that and allow that to drive it a bit. And, do that in as smart of a way as possible. But I think had we not done that or had we squashed that, our careers would have gone in very different directions, probably earlier on.
Mm-hmm. Gordy, how about you?
You can be an asshole, but be decent. You can maintain your blunt honesty and challenge things, but just be a decent human being while doing it. Be human with it. Be self-aware with it. So holding on to that while still being brutally honest there's a balance there. Sometimes that can be difficult to be brutally honest with people and tell them hard truths while still being like a decent human being, and understanding and having empathy.
Yeah. And letting them know, hey, we're still on your side. We're so much on your side. We're going to be honest with you about this.
Right.
Well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much for taking the time today, for sharing your stories, your methods, and your aha moments. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks again to our guests, Gordy Sang and Brian Siedband from Quality Meets Creative. If you want to connect with Gordy or Brian, you can find them on LinkedIn. And if you've got a baby in your life or a baby on the way, make sure you get that wonderful Alphabet book. You won't be disappointed. If you're looking for even more ideas and aha moments, head over to chriskochek.com. There you can find some of my newest online courses, case studies, and creative exercises for building insights and getting to new ideas. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the Lightbulb newsletter. Every Thursday, I share 3 aha moments that are guaranteed to inspire your next project, creative briefing, or campaign. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform and share it with friends, family, clients, colleagues, even your enemies. Special thanks to Michael Osborne at 14th Street Studios for producing this episode, and thank you to Megan Palmer for additional editing and production support. Until next time, keep looking for patterns, finding contradictions, and asking, what if, more often.